The Cat's Whiskers podcast is proudly sponsored by the Bunkers Hill Hockley. Don't miss Panthers game day offers, including Coors Light at £2.50 a pint.
Good evening, it is Monday the 11th of December 2017 and this is the Cat's Whiskers podcast live. Hello, good evening and welcome to this edition of the Cat's Whiskers Review podcast. My name is Tina Taylor. We are going to be looking back on Panthers weekend. Yes, we really do have to look back on Panthers weekend. A bit of a disappointing one, but here to chew the fat and maybe drown some sorrows with me is Aaron Lord.
Good evening, Tina.
Adam Reddish.
Evening, everybody.
And I'm not sure if we've managed to bring him in. He's had some technical issues. Do we have Andy Haywood?
We do.
Way!
Hey!
Just in the nick of time. Fantastic. Right. Okay, so we will kick off with Saturday's game at the NIC. And that was against the Cardiff Devils. And the Cardiff Devils skated away to a 2-1 victory. Panthers goal coming from Zach Phillips. Cardiff goals coming from Crowder and Martin. Interesting game to talk about, I suppose, really, but a bit of a flat performance from the Panthers. And Andy, I'll start with you, because I know you were on Panthers Hockey Live coverage, and that's one of the things that you did mention on there.
Yeah, I don't actually think it was me. I think Ant might logged in and put that, but no, it's ultimately it was quite a bizarre game. I think realistically, Cardiff came out and set the tone early doors, and I think that kind of took us off stride a little bit. And I think it's sort of most odd and most weird because it's the first time it's seemingly happened this season. Even in the CHL games where you know we were dominated for large periods of the CHL games, we still there was still a bit more than what we saw on Saturday. I don't know whether it sort of caught us by surprise a little bit, but it was quite an odd game because I sat there through 40 minutes and thought, I'm amazed that this is so close because we've been severely outplayed and we've hardly created many chances. I think we were outshot 26-14 over two periods. Which as a home team is quite poor, and then I left the game thinking that I was quite gutted we didn't manage to get anything out of it. It was quite bizarre, and I think we showed good resolve through adversity in the third period, but ultimately, realistically, 40 minutes we weren't at the races at all, and it was I think realistically what we've got to be thankful for is that seemingly. It's taken us up until the 9th of December before we saw a performance like that. So in one sense, it's kind of nice that it's taken so long before we've had such an abject match. But by the same token, we've seen this team, we know what they can do, and it was a bit disappointing that we weren't able to sort of perform on the night.
Just to sort of go off topic for a moment, just what you just said there, Andy, just kind of puts this in my mind, and I will just sort of come to all of you on this. But we've obviously already seen rumbles of is this the annual Panthers Christmas meltdown? So I'll throw that one open to the floor. Basically, who wants to come in and sort of make a comment on that?
I don't know. I don't think so. Panthers fans are going to look at what happened at the weekend and naturally come to that conclusion, given that generally we do tend to go into a bit of a tailspin around this time every season. But I think that the performances that we've seen from the team so far this season, I think like Andy was just saying there, they've been of sufficient quality
to make me think, as a fan, that we've got a bit more character about us in this team, and that I'm sure the players and I'm certain that the coaching staff won't have been happy with what happened over the weekend, and they'll be looking to bounce back on that next week and try and put right some of the wrongs that we saw, because they've set high standards. They've set really, really high standards so far. Through the CHL campaign, and we've been top or second in the league for the vast majority of it so far this season. So I'm backing the players. I'm putting it down as just a mere blip. I think I'm not seeing anything more serious than that. Yeah, there are things through the roster that could be a bit better. We could maybe have more goals from people like Josh Schaller, but we're still in a good position, and I don't think there's anything to be overly fearful about just yet.
We were obviously missing Bussier through a ban and Mosey through injury. Aaron, that obviously meant a little bit of juggling around with the lines, and obviously no Kelsall or Tetlow we could call on this weekend because they're up in Dumfries on GB duty. Do you think the two obviously key imports that we were missing there, and obviously the lack of any other sort of viable options, do you think those players could have made a difference to that game?
I think the simple answer to your question, Tina, is yes. And I'll be amazed if anybody actually answers that with a no, to be honest, because, if you do answer that no, then you've got to wonder, why they think they wouldn't be in the side, etc. But, I think for me as well on Saturday, taking that into consideration, you could see that because the lines were a little bit very mixed, and there was certain passages of play where you could maybe just tell, they weren't thinking on the same sort of wavelength, a few of the players. And I suppose that's, expected in one way, because we have had settled lines really this year, which is, sometimes quite a strange thing to say as a Panthers fan, because we're famous for maybe not having the most settled lines in the Elite League. But I think this season, because of the chemistry that you've seen, we have had settled lines. And I think, you take Mosey out of it with the injury, you probably have, you could keep more of the lines the same. But then when you take, Bus into consideration and that one suspension, it just adds something a little bit extra, doesn't it, from one import down to two. So I think if we would have had them, then yes, it would have made a difference. Whether we would have played any better than what we did, I don't know, because I think a little bit like Andy said, it wasn't a great performance, but I also think you have to give a lot of credit to Cardiff as well. I thought they played really, really strong road game. I thought they came out with, the right intent from the off. Very, very strong forechecking. Something which we haven't necessarily seen so much this season for me. I think that's probably the best forechecking I've seen against us. And I think that, that put us under a little bit of pressure. I think the two goals that Cardiff scored, we couldn't really do much about. I think Galbraith did extremely well again. In net, he made some crucial saves. The first one, I just think, it doesn't have time to react, neither does the players around him. It's straight in the face of sort of Crowder, and he boshes it in. And then the second one, it's just, you're not going to save that, are you, really? The split second of a reaction time that he has to get the tip from Martin, I just don't think he's going to be saved. So I think you have to give credit to Cardiff, but also we kind of huffed and puffed, and we didn't really huff and puff with any sort of motion or any sort, nothing was seamless. It kept jigging and jagging for me, kind of thing. So not a great performance, to be honest. But if we would have had Mosey and Bussieres, then I'd like to think they would have made a difference, but it's one of those, we'll never know, will we, really? So that's the way it went.
The score was obviously 2-1, and I mean, Cardiff were looking good for their 2-0 lead while they had it. Was the final score a fair reflection? Adam, I'll come back to you on that one.
Strange one, really, because we were so poor and so lethargic for 40 minutes. And, I mean, I was expecting Cardiff to be, home and hosed and out of sight by that point. But they didn't sort of capitalise. I know Galbraith made some fantastic saves, to keep Cardiff out. But I was thinking, because they weren't out of sight, a big third period, a real push from the Panthers, and we could get back into the game and we could potentially get something out of it. And I think, like Andy said at the start, by the end of the game, you're walking out of the arena thinking, crikey, if a break had gone our way and if a puck had bounced a different way, then we could have taken that game to overtime and maybe even got a second point from it. So it was a really, really strange game to try and critique and look back on to see whether the scoreline was just or not. Cardiff definitely deserved the win. I don't think anybody could deny that. They were far, far superior to us for 2 periods, and we were chasing shadows for much of that time. So I think that in terms of the outcome was definitely right. The scoreline, perhaps not. I think probably Cardiff would have liked 2 or 3 more goals between us than how it finished up at 60 minutes. So
we'll move on to the controversial point, which it's what it sort of feels like to me. There are a couple of odd penalty calls on Panthers, where, jump in if you want to, chaps, but, a couple of calls that were announced on the ice on the night as unsportsmanlike conduct, but Tom Darnell seemed to give the abuse of official signal. So, I don't know if anybody can, sort of clarify if there's been some sort of, clarification of rules, change of rule, or if the signal for both of those penalties is the same. But one of those penalties actually ended up being called on Corey Nielsen on the official game sheet. So there have been on various social media channels, I think, complaints from fans about officiating. I mean, that's par for the course, but I think there were 1 or 2 decisions that left a few of us scratching our heads. Andy, what was your take on that?
Yeah, it was definitely odd, and I think the interview with Corey after the game as well on the website is bizarre in a sense of, it was almost asked a question of, are you aware of the rule changes? But no one seems to be aware of any sort of rule changes. There's been no sort of official communications to anyone, fan-wise, regarding personal misconducts or abuse of official misconducts or that type of thing. And obviously, from Corey's answer, it would appear that nothing seemingly has changed that we were made aware of. And I just think that put it this way. I said to Lou on the night after the game, I said, when was the last time you saw like a misconduct or an abuse of official type penalty that was a 2-minute minor penalty that resulted in a power play? And we thought about it, and they're really rare. And I said, well, bear in mind, we saw 2 in 1 period tonight, and that just seemed odd, and the Brisebois one. I don't know whether that's the one that got changed to Nielsen or whatever, but I mean, Brisebois gets called for a penalty and is skating towards the penalty box, yapping at Tom Darnell. Now that's a matter of fact. There's no, you can't skirt around the issue. He's jawing at the ref. And while staring at Brisebois, Darnell puts his hands to his hips and calls for misconduct. And then it's changed to a bench minor penalty by the time that he's by the time that Steph's announced it. And I just, from a fan's perspective, it was just so baffling how what seemed like a blatant, abuse of official misconduct, that type of penalty, which I just automatically presumed would add a 10 minutes to his already 2-minute minor penalty. And all of a sudden we're on a 5-on-3 power play for the second time of the night for a similar thing. I think DeLego was the first one. And it was just very bizarre. Like I say, I can't remember the last time I saw one of those penalties called, let alone seeing 2 in the same period. And the fact that both resulted on 5-on-3, made it even more astounding. Now, I appreciate if they're changing the rules to try and clamp down on people having to go at the refs, it probably does make sense to make it a penalising penalty, with regards to giving the team a power play, rather than just player X sitting down for 10 minutes and it staying at 5-on-5. If you want to sort of crack down on it, it makes sense to penalise the team with numbers on the ice. So making it a 2-minute minor is seems like a correct thing to do, I suppose. But the fact that there's been no mention of it anywhere, and whether that is the ruling or not, we don't know, because we've not been told otherwise, and it just seemed really odd on the night, to see something like that, which regardless of whether we were rubbish or not, it does change the game, because as I pointed out in the WhatsApp group, when Phillips scored his goal, I don't reckon he'd been on the ice for about 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes, because we've just been on the penalty kill for so long. Now, yes, that's our own indiscretion, and that's fair enough. But if the ruling hasn't changed, then surely it should just be 2-minute minors, not 5-on-3, and 10-minute majors. It's one of the things that just sort of put us back on the cosh a little bit, and never really got us a lot of time to sort of try and force our way back in a game, which we realistically needed to do, because we'd been so bad for over 40 minutes.
And thank you once again, Andy. You have just reminded me of something else that we probably need to talk about. I mean, there's lots of sort of doom and gloom surrounding the games at the weekend, but we had 2 5-on-3 power plays in that game. One was a full 2-minute 5-on-3. One might as well have been for how long the second player was penalised for how the overlap on those 2 penalties. But what an absolute effort by the penalty killers, Aaron.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't think you can't sort of applaud them enough, can you, for what they've not just done in that game. Yes, it was extra sort of special because it was 5-on-3. 2 times like you just mentioned. But I think the penalty kill has just been pretty much superb all season. And to be honest, that those penalty kills gave life to the crowd, because really before them, there wasn't really much energy in the crowd at all. And I know you go on sort of the forums and social media, it's the old, what comes first, chicken or the egg, what comes first? The players perform to get the crowd into it, or the crowd perform to get the players into it, etc. But there's no doubt that penalty kill, or those penalty kills, really did help us. So yeah, I mean, it's just because you're talking about Cardiff as well. Their power play over, sort of since Andrew Lord has come into that organisation, and certainly been in the coaching side of it, as they have always been in the sort of top 3 power plays in the league. So they're very potent when it comes to taking advantage of power plays. So I think it kind of just shows you, I mean, I listened to the interview with Patrick Galbraith after the highlights, and, he mentioned Stevie Lee blocking just 6 shots, with his body alone. I think people really have bought into defending the goal, and defending, kind of the honour of not conceding a goal on the opposition's power plays. So it's a massive part of the game, and by all means, really, I don't know about you guys and girls, but I thought when those 5-on-3s, I thought that's kind of game over now. It's going to be very tough to get through it, but we did, and I believe that gave the energy to the players as well. And like Andy says, you talk about Phillips not being on the ice for a good chunk of that third period. I think it gave him the energy to score that goal, which I think was an absolute beauty of a goal, to be honest, for many, many reasons. But yeah, penalty kill, you could say probably the highlight of the game from our point of view.
Yes. Now, Adam, stop me if you haven't listened to Corey Nielsen's post-match interview. But that to me is a post-match interview done correctly. For me, there were several things in that. Corey Nielsen accepted that Cardiff were the better team. That he was, quietly. well, I don't know what the word, not quite scathing, but he quietly, reprimanded, a couple of players for, receiving the unsportsmanlike penalties, and he didn't let himself get led into anything that would get him into trouble. So as I say, Adam, post-match interview done right.
Oh, absolutely. I thought he conducted the interview with a lot of class. He was magnanimous in defeat. He certainly gave Cardiff the credit that they deserved. I think he just sort of struck the right tone, really. I'm sure that he was very disappointed with, what he saw from his team that night, because there wasn't really the jump that we wanted in that first two periods. And I think that, again, coming back to a point that I made earlier, the whole team have set really high standards, and I don't think we sort of got anywhere close to those in the first 40 minutes on Saturday. And I'm sure that would have annoyed Corey Nielsen. But yeah, he's big enough to say, look, that fell short of the standards that we've set. He, as you say, made a few comments. They weren't direct. He didn't chuck anybody under the bus. That's not generally Corey's style. But the comments he made, I'm sure, would have got back to the players that, that effort wasn't quite there. It wasn't quite good enough. There were problems with the discipline. And, on another night, Cardiff might have been a bit more ruthless, or our penalty kill might not have performed as admirably. And, that scoreline would have been a lot more one-sided. So it was a very sort of classy post-match interview that he conducted. He did sound downbeat, but that's good, because, your coach should be downbeat after your side's lost. And I'm sure that he's already thinking about, what he wants to do in training throughout this week to try and put things right and, get us back to winning ways and, get a couple of wins this weekend.
Right, so we will leave Saturday there. We'll move on to Sunday. Before we do that, just would like to say to you guys, the listeners, if you do want to get in touch with us throughout the show, if you want to make any comments of your own regarding anything we've discussed on Saturday's game or what we're about to say for Sunday's game, best way to get in touch with us is on Twitter at CatsWhiskersTV, and we will include as many of you as we possibly can. So, Sunday, in the snow and the ice and the treacherous conditions until you actually got to Guildford, apparently, the Panthers travelled to the Spectrum to take on the Guildford Flames. Unfortunately, coming home, tails between our legs with a 5-2 defeat. Goals on the power play from Robert Farmer and then from Pellini, and the scorers for the Flames. Craig with a power play goal, later on getting one at even strength. Dunbar, and then Watters and Walker both with empty net goals. So that rounded off a 0-point weekend for the Panthers. Are we panicking yet, Andy? Is he there? have we lost him?
He's panicked so much that he's run away.
You've done my trick then.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think we go into this weekend with a point to prove now. To get back onto winning ways. We've obviously got a pretty big match on Saturday with Belfast coming, and obviously it's tight at the top. So these are the games now that we need to be making sure we win. So I don't necessarily think it's panic stations. I think realistically, Guildford are seemingly. They are in good form. They're seemingly scoring for fun in some games. And obviously the scoreline is inflated by 2 empty net goals where we're trying to force overtime or get that goal back. So it's one of those things. It was always going to be difficult going into Guildford, and it's obviously disappointing not to come away with anything. But I do think that more teams are going to go through that same pattern. They're going to go through that same result going down to the Spectrum. So I don't necessarily think it's panic stations just yet. Like I say, we've obviously got a big weekend coming ahead, and I kind of think that perhaps this weekend with like we've mentioned, the sort of slow start against Cardiff and the 2 losses, maybe it'll be a bit of a kick up the backside, and hopefully we'll kick on from here again. Because this sort of spell of games that we've got coming up, we've got we've got conference rivals, and they're all sort of, it's so close at the top that within a game, seemingly at the moment, things can change quite drastically. So I think potentially if we come away with no points next weekend, then obviously things will need to change. But the players will have to have a serious look at themselves, to go 4 games without any points. So, but no, I still think we're in a decent position. Obviously, it could have been better if we'd have got something for the weekend, but I certainly don't think there's any cause to panic at this stage.
So that game on yesterday does round off our series against Guildford this season in the league. It's our first defeat against Guildford of the 4 games that we have played. It's also our first pattern conference loss. And the other interesting stat to consider is that we haven't actually beat Guildford in regulation. So in a way, you could probably think that this was coming, really. Adam.
Yeah, I mean, Guildford are a good side. They've got a lot of offence. You have to look at the points table in the Elite League, and I think they've got 3 or 4 guys that are in the top 15 or 20 skaters. So, and they're really, really difficult at home. Down at the Spectrum, they score lots of goals and they make life hard for opposition teams. So, other sides are going to go down to Spectrum this year and get turned over. Andy makes a good point about the scoreline being a little bit skewed by those 2 anti-net goals. I mean, obviously, it would still result in a defeat, but 5-2 looks a lot different to 3-2. So I think that I'm not losing confidence. I think every team will go through a bit of a blip like this. The only thing is we just got to get back, and we've got to bounce back this weekend, because we don't want the blip turn into a bit of a slump. Because I think if we were to go through, the next weekend, maybe picking only a point up, or even, another 0-point weekend, that's when the alarm bells will start to ring, especially if, other teams are picking up points and, we're starting to maybe move down the standings a bit. And I know we've got games in hand still on all the teams around us at the top of the table, but, it's, you don't want to be playing catch up, because that puts added pressure on the side. So, it's really important we bounce back. But yeah, I think Guildford are going to surprise quite a few sides down in their rink this year, and I reckon that they're probably going to be a top 5 or top 6 club, which is pretty good going in their inaugural Elite League season.
Aaron, possible concern with Galbraith leaving the game injured with, I believe, sort of 6 minutes to go. So Garnett stepped in. How much of a blow would it be if we were to be missing Galbraith for a few games?
Well, I mean, I think you've got to look at it in 2 ways, haven't you, really? Obviously, we've got Mike Garnett. We're very, very lucky to have 2 import netminders and 2 high-quality import netminders. So, I'll get that out of the way now before people, with what I'm going to say next, because people then go, oh, but you're lucky because you've got 2 import netminders, etc., etc. But I actually think it's quite a big blow, because I think Galbraith has just been immense, really, kind of since he's got here. I mean, I can only really remember one kind of mistake that he's made, and that was the shot through the legs a few weeks ago. I can't remember, was it 5-4? I mean, I might have the wrong team there, but literally there was a shot just into our D zone and it went, it trickled through his legs. That's the only mistake I can remember sort of Galbraith making. I mean, he's leading the goal netminders chart. He's number 1, goal average of just 2.02, save percentage of 94.3 from 9 games played. I just think he's looked solid. And you go back from the previous weekend, conceding 1 goal in 120 minutes worth of hockey against the Steelers, and then up in Braehead. So in that way, I do think it is quite a big blow, to be honest, because he was hot. But we are very lucky because, we have got Mike Garnett there. And I think because of how well Galbraith has played, that might stir Garnett on to realise that it's kind of his shirt now to keep hold of and make sure that when Galbraith comes back from his injury, Garnett keeps that number one spot. So I suppose we've got to wait and see how long Galbraith is out for, but I do think it is a bit of a blow to us, if I'm honest.
None of us were actually at the game, and as Guildford join us in the No Webcast Club, we only had the Panthers Hockey Live coverage to go on. We still do, because we're still waiting on highlights from that game at this time. So thank you, Rob, for going all the way down there. Panthers Hockey Live coverage that indicated that we had a late surge in the last 5 minutes of the third period, which almost sort of echoed the previous night, where we sort of had a bit of a surge in the last 10 minutes following those two penalty kills and Zach Phillips' goal. So is maybe a touch of too little too late for both games this weekend, Andy?
Yeah, I think it is, but I also think what you got to think of is whenever you're losing or chasing a game, you're always going to have a push towards the end of it as you try and sort of make amends and get back into it. So it is kind of frustrating because, as we've said, we've seen what this team can do, and we've seen the way that we play and how well we play when we force the game on others. And you sit there and you watch sort of like the last 5-10 minutes of a game that you're losing, and you see how much battle there is and some of the chances you create, and you sort of think, well, if you'd have just played like that, half an hour earlier, then we wouldn't be in this situation. But inevitably, in any sport that you play, when you're chasing a game, the chances are you're going to have the majority of the possession, the majority of the chances, bar obviously things like breakaways and stuff as teams push on. But no, in one aspect it's frustrating and it can be quite annoying. But I think realistically it would be a lot more. It would be a lot more of a problem if we weren't getting those kind of chances towards the ends of games, and we weren't sort of showing that interest and that care in making, in trying to get back into a game. Don't get me wrong, there will be times when the game is completely lost and it. If you're losing 5 or 6 goals with 10 minutes to go, the chances are that it's still going to be relatively flat. But whenever it's close, I'd always like to think that we would be the team pressing the play, and we'll be the one sort of dictating the way that the game is going at that stage, and sort of making sure that all the momentum is going towards the other netminder.
Okay, so we will leave the weekend there and we will move on to Player of the Week. Hurrah, hurrah. Right, so in third place this week is Ollie Betteridge. I could be wrong, but I think that might be Ollie's first entry into the top 3 of Player of the Week, and I for one am happy to see him there. I think he made an absolute stunning effort, and he's been very, very good for his added minutes, his extra responsibilities, and so well done, Ollie. You're knocking on the door, mate. In second place, an absolute stunner of a goal on Saturday. It is Zach Phillips, the man with the beard. So well done to you, Zach, knocking on the door. But the Cat's Whiskers Player of the Week for this week, who else? It's Patrick Galbraith. So well done to you, Patrick. The votes that came in from the fans who have voted in our poll, you have come out as top dog. So brilliant performance on Saturday. Kept us competitive on Sunday, from what I understand. So well-deserved Player of the Week, I would say. So well done to you. We will just read off some comments that have been sent in. We have a few that came in through the Player of the Week vote, but also a few of you got in touch on Twitter, so we'll jump into some of those. We've had a Cardiff fan, Kenwin at Kenwin64. Great defensive away game by the Devils tonight. I would imagine that with that comment you were actually there, Kenwin, so why didn't you come and say hello? Galbraith was awesome for Panthers. Surprisingly, our power play still faltering badly tonight. Whether you like Tom Darnell's calls or not, you can't argue with a stripey. I think that's probably a fair statement. Would you agree with that, guys?
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, yes. It lands you a 2-minute unsportsmanlike conduct, apparently, these days. Anyway, I'm sure somebody will iron that out for us at some point, because I think we're still a little bit in the dark about that. Panthers Banter says, defence was fairly good, limited Cardiff to 2 goals, which most teams will be pleased with, and Guildford to 3, ignoring the empty netters. Not going to win many hockey games scoring 1 or 2 goals, though, so hopefully it's just a blip on the forwards. And Kim Harris, at Kim and Ruby Harris on Twitter, despite a 0-point weekend, every team in the league would swap to be in our position with 2 games in hand. She says #only halfway. So, you know, she does make a valid point. You know, we're sort of still the right side of Christmas. We do have some games in hand which we'd like to think the team can convert into points. But yes, getting the points is the key, I would imagine. A few others from the Player of the Week. Where are we? Standout player on Saturday was 100% Lacko. Actually, as I've read that, anybody else feel that anybody other than Lacko, as just mentioned, or the top 3 in the Player of the Week sort of stood out for you on Saturday, guys?
I thought initially Brisebois, in that first period, I thought he was absolutely immense. He broke up I think it was a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 at one point, and his defensive play and transitional play was very good, but it sort of tailed off a little bit as the game went on, and then obviously he was one of the ones that fell foul of Darnell. So other than that, really, as you say, Lacko was very good. I think the past couple of games as well, I think David Clark's changed sort of. Maybe he hasn't changed the way he plays as such, but he's been a lot more aggressive and a lot more physical, which is good to see. Because I think he's probably realised that he hasn't chipped in with a goal for a few weeks now, so he's looking at his game and seeing how best he can contribute. So it was good to see him being physical, but I think realistically, Galbraith was exceptional. Phillips scored a very good goal. And Lacko and Betteridge were very, very good. Never gave up the ghost and constantly harassed. So I think realistically, those 4 are probably the sort of the only 4 that sort of really shone in the game that I saw.
Right. I have just spotted one of the comments that was written for us in the Player of the Week comments section. The person who has written this has made gone to a lot of effort to write this, so I feel it would be remiss of me not to read this out. So buckle up, chaps. This is a little on the long side. Unfortunately, a disappointing weekend. My initial reaction was all doom and gloom. However, with time to reflect and let my emotions calm down, we are still in a fantastic position and should be considered as favourites for the title right now. We've had one bad weekend. I'd take that in the middle of December. Hopefully, this weekend was just a blip. Every team will have them. Steelers, Giants and Devils all have had more than one weekend blip so far. The league is so good, I'm sure the league winners will probably finish with one of the least title winning points ever. Points will drop all season. It's going to be one hell of a ride for the league this season, and we have a fantastic chance to bounce back this weekend with 2 huge games. Saturday's performance was very disappointing. Cardiff were good, but we were poor. I was surprised we didn't react differently after a below par first. Did anyone else think like me when I say we massively missed Bussier? He doesn't do anything fancy, and he won't have the highest point score at the end of the season, but his forechecking is relentless, and he makes use of his physical play. It feels to me as though the rest of the team forechecked better when Bussier leads that physical play. He is in the shadow... Hang on. He is in the shadow big piece of our puzzle, I think. There we go. Oh, gosh, I couldn't read that properly then. And whoever that is, they have said, apologies, this is long. So, yeah, apology accepted. Don't think you're going to get read out every week just because you put War and Peace on the comments section. But thank you very much for making the effort to put that in the comments. So we will have a look at the other Elite League results and news. First thing I will sort of touch on, we're trying to have a balanced view of our 0 point weekend, and it seems our friends up the road have had a minor meltdown with their 2 point weekend. They beat the Clan on Friday night, but then lost to the Belfast Giants on Sunday. A narrow defeat as well. It wasn't exactly like it was a shellacking. I haven't listened to it, but apparently Paul Thompson's post-match interview was another stonker of a listen. And from what I understand, I think you mentioned, Adam, that the players have had their rest day cancelled. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not quite sure what the question is here, guys. But what's your take on all of that, Aaron?
Well, I mean, if you're feeling down as a Panthers fan, you've just got to listen to that interview and it'll cheer you up, to be honest. I don't know. It doesn't seem happy in Steelerland, does it, to be honest? I think, I've got Steeler friends. I follow people on Twitter, that are friends that support the Steelers, etc. And they're all asking sort of questions, etc. of that. It's not a balanced team. It's not a very settled team. It doesn't kind of seem to be going as well as it has in previous seasons. And it seems that a lot of fans are agreeing on what should change, but maybe people at the club either obviously don't agree with them or are looking at it in a different way. But yeah, I mean, I watched that interview and Tomo isn't very happy. He called the Sunday game unacceptable, and he just was very much kind of used the words of that if you're not willing to kind of fight in games against a team of the Giants, then maybe they'll have to look to replace those people. So I don't know. I think obviously when you look at them in the league, it's not kind of what you would expect. So I don't know, but we've had obviously a very disappointing weekend. But I think when you look around at other teams as well, they are struggling, and it kind of goes back to the point you just made in the comment through the poll mentioned as well, that this is kind of I believe it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is our first 0 point weekend. So we could always be Steelers at the moment, so maybe not everything is as bad as some people might make out. But it'd be interesting to see what happens with Sheffield, because I think we've talked about it on previous podcasts as well, that I think we'll probably see some more changes, I think, up the road, because it's obvious, Paul Thompson isn't very happy with what he's getting at the moment.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned the changes there, Aaron. They did make a change last week. They released Ramsey and brought in Francilla. Another player, suggestions are that as you rightly say, that there could be more changes for the Steelers. So that's a watch this space kind of thing at the moment. Another bit of player movement, Ashley Tate signed with the Giants for the weekend, and I believe he got his milestone, was it 800th game in all Elite League competitions while he was there. So nice for him to get to that milestone, but also seems to have done quite well. Just before the show, or maybe just after we went live, Giants fan called Jo, she got in touch and she says, after listening to last week's podcast where you said Ashley Tate could end up in Nottingham, I think it's safe to say I'm glad he didn't. Look forward to listening to the podcast tomorrow, guys. Thank you very much for getting in touch there, Jo. Just to clarify, I believe that I believe we sort of mentioned that to Jono that he might end up at Nottingham Lions rather than Nottingham Panthers. But not.
I was going to say, who said that?
It was me. Hands up. I said that he could end up at the Lions.
Yes.
But no, he went and proved us all wrong and headed over to Belfast.
Yes, he certainly did. One other bit of news: the Clan have lost Patulny for an extended period. He has an injury, so that leaves them with another little hole to fill. And I think I'm probably right in saying that they've only just had their full quota of imports. So it's still not a great time to be a Clan fan at the moment, I would say. Right, so next sort of bit of news, if you will. The GB Under-20 Division 2 Group A tournament is well underway. We are on game day 2, I believe. Bit of interest for the Panthers in this tournament, with Josh Tetlow and Jordan Kelsall being involved, and also David Clark's son Morgan. The second game for Team GB, I believe, is currently underway. The last update I can see on the Team GB Ice Hockey Twitter feed is that GB are leading 3-1. GB goals from Kirk, Nags and Buessa. So Kirk, obviously, with the Steelers, and Nags, I believe, is a Guildford Flame.
He's a Milton Keynes
player.
Milton
Keynes, sorry, my apologies. Thank you very much for the correction. And Buessa from the Brayhead clan, and Solway, I believe he plays for as well. So that's in the second period. So that's in progress now as we record. Yesterday, GB took on who did they take on? I watched that game. Thank you very much. Watch that game. I can't even blooming remember. Took that game. Where were we? 3-2 win. Yes, 3-2 win. Sam Duggan opening the scoring 11 seconds into the seventh period after a scoreless first. Romania equalised, and it was quite a superb shot from Zoltan Sandor. That's a brilliant name. Wonderful name. I don't think he probably realises how amazing that name is in English. Towards the end of the second, they then went ahead early in the third. Craig Garrigan evened it up for GB 16 seconds later. Wonderful response. And Cole Shudra of the Sheffield Steelers was on the doorstep to put away the game winner on the power play at 52-16. And that was the end of the scoring. As I say, 3-1 at the moment. GB's games are all 8 p.m. face-offs. Tomorrow is a rest day, and they play the Netherlands on Wednesday, Korea on Thursday, finishing up with Japan. And reports suggest that that's going to be the decider should GB sort of continue on the course that they're sort of hinted at doing. The GB games are all being shown on Free Sports, or you can purchase the whole tournament pass as a webcast via 24/7, which is at 247.tv. I believe it's £6 per individual game, £30 for the tournament pass. That if you get that in quickly, that may actually still be worth your while if you have the time off work to be able to watch all those games. The commentary for the GB games is with Bob Ballard and our very own Jono Bullard, which is why he's not on the podcasts this week. And Jono is also doing the commentary for the games that GB are not involved in, and those ones, as I say, are only available via 24/7. If you want to get yourself a bit of a hockey binge going on this weekend, then head over to 247.tv. So we will look ahead to the weekend we're about to have, the big bounce back weekend, hopefully, fingers crossed. And Saturday we are heading up to Altrincham to face the Manchester Storm. So far this season, we have only played them in the Cup, and we are on 1 win and 1 loss. The loss was the game where we decided to rest some of our players and get our Brits some ice time. Sam Gospel stepping in for a start in the net, and Tetlow, Hazeldine and Kelsall all getting regular shifts. So, Adam, how do we see Saturday's game going?
Well, hoping for a win, naturally, but Manchester, they're not in the greatest of form at the moment, are they? They've come down the table a little bit in recent weeks. I think they've lost a few games. I know they lost on Sunday, surprisingly, to Dundee. So I don't think they're in the greatest form at the moment. So I think it's probably a good time to play them. You know, if their confidence is a bit low, or they're not quite firing on all cylinders, then it's definitely a good chance for us to go to Altrincham and try and bring the 2 points back. We've got to look to make a statement this weekend, because I'm sure that the players' pride might have took a little bit of a knock from what happened over this weekend, and everyone will be really keen to try and bounce back and show that the weekend that's just gone was just a bit of a blip, really, and nothing more than that. So I think that we've got every chance of going there and coming back with a win. We just need to get back to doing what we're good at doing, which is dictating games, not letting our opposition skate around and getting lots of shots in on netminder. I think that we should be okay. I think that I'm not massively concerned about Saturday's game against Manchester. I think we should win that one.
Andy, same question really. How does that game feel for you?
I think it'll be incredibly difficult. I agree with Adam's comments that they're not in the greatest of form at the moment, but I do think that with that in mind, it's probably not a good time to play them in Manchester. I just think that there's a lot of is pressure the right word? Because I think they're probably overachieved as to where they are at this current stage. But I think that they've sort of, they're at that stage now where they're in a really good position to sort of make a name for themselves in that sense. They're right up there. They're not far off the top spot still. They've had a bit of a dip in form, but they've got a team that's they're going to be playing a team that's coming off the back of 2 losses themselves, and I think it will be. I don't get me wrong. I don't think either game is going to be particularly easy, but I think out of the 2 games this weekend, I think we have far more potential to be beaten on Saturday than we probably do on the Sunday. And I think with that in mind, I think it will be an incredibly difficult game for us.
So that brings me nicely on to Sunday's game, where we come back to the NIC for a 4 p.m. face-off against the Belfast Giants. Aaron, I'll give you first stab at this one. Belfast have just come off the complete opposite to us, and they have a 4-point weekend, currently sitting top of the table. But we haven't lost against them yet this season. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Are you a positive person or are you a negative person? I don't.
You could ask me that question after coming off a 4-point weekend and a 0-point weekend, and depending on which way the wind's blowing, you could probably get a completely different answer.
Very well answered. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you would look at that kind of record, like you say, and you think, well, that's kind of got to turn at some stage, hasn't it, really? Because very rarely do one team beat another team all the way through the season. It's for me, the Giants are on this long sort of away road stretch, aren't they? And to be fair to them, they've done very well. I think they've got 5 wins out of 6 or something on the road already. It's kind of, the momentum is definitely with them. And I said this on a couple of podcasts ago that, they have surprised me this season, to be honest, because I didn't expect them to be where they are. So that's a bit of a shock for me, but fair play to them because, as tables doesn't lie and all those cliches, but we've obviously had success against them. So it kind of leads me to say that Corey knows, how Adam Keefe is going to set up his team. Granted, in those games, they have had a lot of suspensions and a lot of injuries, and I believe they're starting to get some of those back, or at least they're not having so many suspensions. Obviously, they've still got, I believe, Galactus is still out suspended from his long-term sort of one that he got recently. It's a real tough one. I agree with what Andy said regarding the Manchester game. So regarding how that goes on Saturday, I think, we as fans could be entering the NIC on Sunday one of 2 ways. A little bit relieved because we've got, the W up in Manchester the night before relieves a bit of pressure, gets us buzzing a little bit, for the game, etc., gets us all positive. And I think that can relate to the players as well, obviously. But then if it goes the opposite way and we again struggle up in Manchester and God forbid we don't come away with no points, but, say we do, then I think it really does put a lot of pressure onto the Sunday. And I know you can say, well, you've just got to treat every game as on its own, etc. But I think when the expectation on this season's roster and the organisation this season, 3 games without a victory, it is quite a big thing, because I think it does put a lot of pressure. And also, it's going to put pressure on the crowd. Now, we kind of spoke about it earlier, but for me, it's been very flat the last couple of weekends. You take into consideration the Steelers game the weekend before, the one just gone, and then obviously the Cardiff game. Now, 2 different performances there, really, from the players. So the players played exceptionally well against the Steelers, yet it was still a flat atmosphere. The players didn't play great against the Devils, still a flat atmosphere. So I really do think Sunday, the crowd will have a big part to play off from the off. So I honestly don't know, to be honest. I hate to say that, because I do like to go one way or the other, but I'd like to think that we kind of get a scrappy, hard-fought win on the Saturday, and then that gives us a bit more freedom, a bit more relaxation to go out and play the kind of games that we have against the Giants on the Sunday. Because I think, for me, the Giants have they're very strong offensively. They've got some good players. I like Connolly, for example. I think he is a very good, skillful player, always looking to get on the puck and create chances or make chances for his teammates. The part that I think Belfast are vulnerable, if you get it right, is definitely the net-minding situation. I think their net-minding is their weakness. And then I also think that leads kind of to the pressure that puts on their defence. So I think for us, it's about being on the front foot, forechecking very well. Like, I can't remember whether it was Adam or Andy says, or even yourself, Tina, forgive me. But, with having Bussieras back in the lineup, get that forechecking going, put pressure, create turnovers, and then fingers crossed we see the forwards clicking again. But it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be one of those games that it's going to be a weekend for me that is kind of going to be nail biting at times. You're going to be up, you're going to be down, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be happy. And I think after having a 0-point weekend, it's just about getting points back on the board. But just my final point on it very quickly is, if you look to the league table, I think it's one of those games that, we currently have 4 games in hand on the Giants, and we're 2 points behind them. So if you take a victory for us on Sunday, we're level on points with the Giants, depending on obviously what happens Saturday, etc. And we still have 4 games in hand on them. So it's one of those where we've just missed out on that kind of point system with Cardiff. We can't miss that out again with Belfast. So it is crucial that we do pick some points off of them on Sunday.
And this message was brought to you by Coach Aaron Lord. Right then, chaps. Unless Adam or Andy would like to come in on the Belfast game, I think we can probably go on.
No.
No.
Well, I was just going to say that I pretty much agree with what Aaron said. It's a real character game for us, and we do have to go after them early. I mean, if you look at their defensive record, it's not great. I think there's only 3 teams in the league that have conceded more goals than Belfast. So, that's quite clear to me where the weaknesses on their roster lie. So, we've got to get our forward units clicking again. It'd be good to get Bussieras back in the lineup. I think he, like someone said earlier, who tweeted in, is an unheralded figure on the roster. And hopefully that chemistry comes back and we can defeat Belfast. But it's still tight. If we win both games this weekend, then we're probably going to be back at the top of the league. So that should be something that's driving the players and, you know, giving them that sort of inspiration to really dig deep this weekend and, you know, get a win at Manchester and then follow it up with a win at the NIC against Belfast.
Right, okie dokie. So, yes, something to strive for. So, on the back of a 0-point weekend, we're looking to pick up the momentum again and avoid the deadly, dreaded Christmas meltdown. But just don't tell any of the new imports. Just, you know, ban them from social media. Don't let them say anything about it, and hopefully we'll be all right. So, right. I think, unless anybody has got anything that they would like to bring up or anything that they think I've forgotten, I think we can probably leave it there. Ask TCW this week is going to be on Thursday. We're having to move it for 1 week only. So please get your questions in via Twitter at Cats Whiskers TV. We have a Facebook page, the Cats Whiskers. We have a dedicated thread on the Cage Forum. And you can send them in via email. And I am probably going to get this wrong, but I'll let you correct me, Aaron. It is tcwonlinetv@gmail.com.
Correct.
Hey, it's there. Right. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much to you guys for listening once again, and thank you to my cohorts tonight, Aaron Lord.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Andy Haywood.
Anytime. Good night.
And Adam Reddish.
Good night, everybody.
I've been Tina Taylor. Ta-da.
This edition of the Cats Whiskers podcast was brought to you by the Bunkers Hill Hockley.